Because it is both the feast of the coming of the three wise men and this feast of revelation. And through the wise men, I believe that God has set out and wants to reveal something to us. And what I feel that God wants to reveal to us is found within the names and how we perceive the wise men. First off, we hear that the wise men were followers of the stars. People who are followers of the stars today are about astrology. I realized this a few months ago. I complimented a cousin of mine on an interesting design that she had on her ring. I said, "Oh, that looks beautiful." And she said, "Thank you. And what sign are you?" And I looked at her and I said, "Pardon?" She said, "Well, what sign are you? I'm a Leo, so what are you?" "Oh, okay, I got it." I'm like, "I'm a Gemini." "Oh," she said, "well, that means that you must be very, what was it? I wrote it down here. Creative, but you're also two-sided because you're a twin." She said, "I'm a Leo, so I'm like the lion, fierce and passionate, but I could be self-centered." Okay, and you look at any kind of newspaper, all the newspapers have them. No matter what you read, there's always your horoscope. What the stars have to say about your day, what the stars have to say about who you are, that they are called to be, and what it is that the stars have deemed as their destiny. It's fun, granted, but it's not something that I could fully throw myself behind. I think because I don't follow those stars as much as I follow that one star, that star of Bethlehem. But the wise men also were ones who looked up to the sky to read what was in the future. So we need to hold that mystery there and to just take it as it is. Wise men were also known not only as astrologers, but also we hear them called sometimes the Magi. Now, Magi refers to those who do magic. Again, this is kind of somewhat troubling because most of the time in our scriptures when we hear about Magi and magicians, it's not under a positive light. Now again, as much as I think astrology could be kind of fun at times, I like magic at times too. I always take great delight in watching a magic show, but I don't hold faith in it because I have come to realize that any magic, no matter how astounding and marvelous it seems, is always a sleight of hand or a trick. There's something that you can't see happening underneath that if you really understood it, you would be able to know how they were able to do what they were able to do. So I could sit there and be amazed and enjoy it, but I don't put faith in magic. But these guys were known as Magi, as the ones who were able to do things that we cannot understand. This is different than miracles that God brings around. They were known as Magi, as magicians. How does God work through Magi here? The title that I could get behind most, probably because it fits most in with my rational kind of way of thinking, is wise men. I could get behind this idea of people who through experience and time become wise. And so the title wise men, I think I'm most comfortable with instead of the astrologer or the magicians. But if we look at this idea of wise men, we know that they saw something in the stars. They did maybe they're mathematicians. They did calculations, and it took them to Jerusalem. But what we hear from our text is their knowledge only took them so far. It didn't actually lead them directly to the stable. Even though that's so many of our images in the wonderful nativity plays, what we have in the scriptures is the Magi's journey leads them to Jerusalem. And at Jerusalem, they present themselves and they say what they have seen, and they say, "Could we learn from your learned people? We have seen the star and we believe it speaks of the King of the Jews, but we don't know any more. Our wisdom only goes so far." And so the priests and the scribes are called upon to try to answer the wise men's question. Well, where would this child be born? Where is the prophecy? And the wise men of Jerusalem, God's holy people, the scribes and the priests, they look in the scriptures, our words to direct us to our future. And they say, well, according to the prophecies, the child is to be born in Bethlehem. But interestingly enough, we don't hear of any of the scribes or priests going with the wise men to pay homage to the newborn child. They might be learned and wise. They might know the answers. But they don't have enough faith in the ones who have come to travel there themselves, to see for themselves if what they are saying is true. They dismiss them. They dismiss them as maybe foreigners, as astrologers, as magicians, as wise people from somewhere else, but they don't take their words at face value. They don't bother. The only one who seems to bother and be interested is Herod and some of the people when he is told that his kingdom might be at risk. When nationhood and power are at play. And the only reason he might realize this is he sees these wise men as another thing that they are sometimes called, which are kings. 3 kings, foreigners from a different land who have come bearing some kind of wealth. And for their wealth and the power that they represent, are deemed worthy to listen to. So he sends them out with this king to king kind of idea. You find them and you let me know where they are. And so whatever they are, they go off alone. These astrologers, magi, wise men, or kings. They go off and they find the child. And they see him for who God has revealed him to be, which is the Messiah, the King of all kings, the Lord of all lords, the one God had prophesied through the prophet Isaiah, through the Psalms, through all the prophets, the one who is to come. And seeing this, they knelt down and they worshiped. There is mystery here, but it's mystery worth holding on to and learning from. Because regardless of who they were, astronomers, magicians, wise men, foreign dignitaries, kings, they all inform us that the birth of Jesus is of cosmic and astronomical importance for all people. And God will often use the most unlikely people to reveal his presence in the world. No one is to be shut out of the revelation of Christ. And sometimes it is the most unlikely people or situations that will reveal to us deep truths about who Christ really is. The story of the wise men shows us that we can never say never when it comes to God. The season and story of Epiphany shows us that God refuses to be put into boxes, refuses to be only there for certain kinds of people, refuses to have any kind of limitation because God is bigger than anything that we could dream or imagine about God. And in the next few weeks, as we'll hear more and more stories of revelation as people come to see Christ truly as the Son of God, we will learn from Jesus himself as he reaches out to the least and the most unlikely people that God is truly there for everyone, and God's boundaries stretch far beyond what we could ever imagine. This season is one of my favorite seasons of the church because it reveals to us all the mysteries of God, all the things that lay hidden, and brings them to light. It shows a God who refuses to stand still or be within constructed boundaries, a God who defies all laws of class, culture, religion, and even physics to make himself known. And in this season, I invite you to think about where God has revealed God's self to you and how it is that you have been touched by God. Maybe in an unlikely place or by an unlikely person, but how have you come to know who Christ is more deeply? How have you come to confess him yourself as Lord? And you'll see that throughout this sermon to tell us all. And we'll have times in this season where we will hear testimonies from different people about how it is that God has spoken to you. So hold that in your heart and ponder that, as Mary pondered everything in her heart. And let us be open to the mysteries and revelations of Christ. Thanks be to God. Amen.